All right, welcome. Today we are diving into a really fascinating idea, the hidden battle between two kinds of intelligence. See, one type builds things that are meant to last, and the other, well, it just builds things to look good. And understanding this difference is the key to figuring out why so many systems that seem successful just suddenly and catastrophically fall apart.
I mean, you've seen this, right? A company that's absolutely booming one day, and then it's gone the next. A government that looks like it has everything under control until a real crisis hits. Or a piece of tech that works perfectly, right up until the moment it spectacularly doesn't. You know, this isn't just a string of bad luck. There's something deeper going on, a kind of hidden code that decides if something is actually built to last or if it's just putting on a good show.
So these two codes, they're called structural intelligence and behavioral intelligence, and the tension between them, that's the whole secret. That's what unlocks the puzzle we just talked about. To make this really clear, we're going to follow a little hypothetical tech startup through this explainer. Let's call them Innovate Fast. Okay, let's get into the first code.
Okay, first up, we have structural intelligence, or SI. Now, this isn't about being smart in the way we usually think about it. It's all about a system's deep internal integrity. It's about how well it's built from the inside out. And here's the key. It has absolutely nothing to do with appearances or what anyone thinks about it. For our startup, Innovate Fast, this isn't their cool logo or their slick marketing campaign. No, it's the actual quality of their code, the stability of their servers, the real logic of their business model. It really just boils down to one question. Is this thing fundamentally sound enough to hold itself together when things get tough?
And this is what makes structural intelligence so brutal. There's no gray area. A system is either coherent or it's already falling apart. You can't be kinda structurally sound. For Innovate Fast, it means their software either works flawlessly when a million users log on at once, or it crashes. It's a simple, unforgiving pass-fail test.
Now, on the complete flip side, you have behavioral intelligence, or BI. And this is the kind of intelligence we see and we reward every single day. It's all about performance, about the show. The keywords to remember here are observable, actions, and observer interprets. For Innovate Fast, this is everything you and I would see from the outside. Their super charismatic CEO giving a killer presentation, their ads that go viral, their user numbers that just keep climbing. It's all about looking good.
You know, the best way to think about this is to picture an iceberg. Behavioral intelligence is that impressive tip you see sticking out of the water, the flashy results, the stuff that gets all the attention. But structural intelligence, that's the massive, invisible foundation under the surface. It's the part that actually determines if the whole thing is going to survive a storm or just shatter into a million pieces. So Innovate Fast can have this huge, impressive tip that wows all the investors and users, all while being completely hollow and unstable underneath.
So, this brings up a massive question, doesn't it? If structural intelligence is the real measure of whether something will last, why does our entire world seem to run on behavioral intelligence? Why do we value the performance so much more than the foundation?
Well, the answer seems to lie in these four big reasons. First, we give power to people and systems based on how they look, on our perception of them. Second, our whole world is built on short-term rewards, think quarterly earnings reports or election cycles, which always favors quick, flashy results over slow, deep work. Third, whoever puts on the best performance gets to control the story. And finally, most of us just aren't trained to see deep structural problems. We have this collective structural illiteracy. It's like at Innovate Fast, the CEO gets a huge bonus for that quarterly user growth, not for taking the time to fix old, creaky code.
And what's the end result of all this? We've ended up with a world where the most convincing performers are in charge, not necessarily the people running the most stable, most resilient systems. It's like we've replaced the architect with the stage actor. The charismatic CEO of Innovate Fast, he's the actor. The quiet engineer in the back trying to warn everyone about server capacity, he's the architect that nobody wants to listen to.
But it gets even deeper and, frankly, a lot more dangerous. What happens when this obsession with performance isn't just a simple bias, but it's actively used as a weapon, a tool for control? This is where behavioral intelligence gets weaponized.
Suddenly, the entire game just shifts. Public perception isn't just a report card anymore, it becomes the actual battlefield. Winning is no longer about fixing a deep, structural problem. No, winning is about controlling the story, managing the optics, and making sure the audience sees what you want them to see. So when a competitor points out a huge flaw in Innovate Fast's product, the goal isn't to fix the flaw, the goal is to win the PR war.
And there's a whole playbook for this stuff. It's not about having a good debate, it's about narrative warfare. You label your opponents as idiots, you reframe your failures as amazing learning experiences, you find a scapegoat to blame, you even manufacture a crisis to justify grabbing more power. And maybe the most clever trick, you just change the definition of success to match whatever you manage to do. So that massive data breach at Innovate Fast, that gets spun as a valuable stress test of our robust systems.
And this brings us to a really critical point. A system that runs on pure performance doesn't just ignore structural integrity, it sees it as a direct threat. Why? Because a real structural analysis would expose the whole performance as a sham, so the system actively works to undermine it. It discredits it, it cuts its funding, or, and this is the most cunning move, it steals its language while completely gutting it of any real meaning. Think about Innovate Fast. When the engineers ask for a month to fix the core architecture, management calls them anti-progress and says they're stifling innovation.
All of this leads to the final, and honestly, the most chilling piece of this entire puzzle, a self-perpetuating cycle where failure doesn't lead to learning or fixing things, it just leads to hitting the reset button on the very same broken system.
You can actually see this cycle play out in a really predictable pattern. Let's walk through it with our startup, Innovate Fast. It starts with the appearance of stability. Hey, the user numbers look fantastic. But underneath, the structural failure is already happening. The app starts crashing more and more. Then the crisis hits, but it immediately gets reframed. It's blamed on unprecedented user demand. Then you get a huge surge of emergency performance to show everyone that we're in control. The CEO announces an all-hands-on-deck crisis response team. Under the cover of all that chaos, power is consolidated. That cautious engineer who warned about this exact problem, he gets fired for not being a team player. And finally, you get a superficial reset to create the illusion of change. They push out a minor update with a new logo, and the entire broken cycle starts all over again. And this is probably the most disturbing takeaway of all. In a system that runs this way, collapse isn't a bug. It actually becomes a feature. Every crisis becomes an opportunity to grab more control, to consolidate more power, and to restart the performance for a public that's just desperate for solutions. Failure literally feeds the very system that creates it. And that's the real trap, isn't it?
So as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with this one question. Just look at the institutions all around you. Your job, your government, the tech you use every day. Now that you have this new lens, ask yourself, is this system built on a foundation of deep, real, structural coherence? Or is it just putting on a really, really good show?